Hello again everyone, I'm Dave Thomas and today I am building the Estes X-Ray. This is a mini engine powered payloader model, and my particular kit was part of a bulk pack, so I don't have the fancy packaging here. But we do have the instructions and a parts list, so we'll go through that quickly. Alright, we have our decal sheet of self-stick decals, main body tube pre-colored, payload tube, fin assembly and nose cone, launch lug, a very small shock cord, and a streamer, and then the reducer adapter and the engine hook. So we've got everything here. Alright, the first step is to test fit everything on the payload section. Alright, so our nose cone here does not have a base plate, it does not need one, and that's going to fit on here. And then the transition here fits on this end. Now they're relying everything on friction fits here. What I recommend is to friction fit the nose cone here, so we're going to add a little bit of tape to that because we don't want this to come loose and fall down away from the rocket during flight and potentially lose whatever you have in your payload section. Okay, and you may only need maybe half a circumference here. Mine felt really loose, so I'm going to give it a full circumference of masking tape here. Okay, and that's actually too tight, so I'm going to back that off a little bit. And you may have to change this depending on weather conditions and such, because differences in temperature and humidity will make this fit differently. So we'll try this again. Alright, that's nice and snug, but I can still get it apart with some effort. Okay, so that's what we want there. Now, for this part, you can either do the same thing, wrap this with masking tape, and then put it in, or you could glue this on. Regardless, I highly recommend that you put something down inside here to plug this hole, because when the ejection charge goes off, hot ejection gases can go up through this hole and affect whatever you have in your payload bay down there. And a thought just occurred to me, it would be even better if I used some recovery wadding, which I just happen to have a piece or two handy here. Alright, so I'm going to take a piece of recovery wadding and make that into a nice tight little ball. And then I'm going to put some glue on it. And here I'm going to use, you can use white glue or wood glue. I'm going to use a little bit of wood glue here. I'm just going to put that on the end. This is going to kind of hold the whole thing together. Okay, and now I'm going to put that down inside here. And I'm going to use the handle of my hobby knife to shove that all the way down inside. Alright, so you can see it coming out there. Okay, and the glue will help it keep its shape there. But now we can't get the exhaust gases up where they may potentially harm whatever your payload is. Okay. I am going to permanently glue mine as well. And for that you can use either a tube type plastic cement like this, or you can use a gel type super glue. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use the plastic cement, and here I'm going to run a bead right along the inside edge. And since this was fairly loose, I'm going to give it a nice uniform bead there. You don't want too much or you'll melt all the plastic. Okay, but now I'm just going to insert this, kind of twist it around in there so the glue is evenly spread. Okay, and now I'm just going to let this dry for a while. You may see a little bit of haziness appear in here, and that's just due to the solvents of the glue. Most of that will go away again. So let that dry. And in the meantime, we're going to move on to the next part. All right, where we need to mark our body tube here. Okay, now since this is pre-colored and we don't necessarily want to have to paint it again, be careful with your line here. Try and make it as light as possible. If you're using a pencil, even though you might erase the mark, it still tends to leave a crease there that is really hard to hide afterward. So you might consider using a black permanent marker, a Sharpie, because the black on black will be more difficult to see, but I'm hoping it will stand out enough that we'll be able to see what we're doing here. Alright, so they first have us make a line all the way down the length. You can use a door frame for this. They actually specifically recommend using this guy, okay, which gives, it's basically a portable door frame for lots of different size tubes. I use it because it's really easy to get it under the camera. Alright, so we'll try this with the fine point Sharpie here. Okay, and I don't know if you can see it on the video, but I can just see it on the tube, and that's what I was aiming for there. Okay, now coming back, we need to make some measurements here. Alright, so starting from the aft end of the tube, and I'm actually going to write on the inside here, aft, so that I don't get them confused later on. Okay, now I'm going to take a ruler, and we need 3.5 centimeters, or about 1 3/8 inches, and another one at 3 centimeters on that line. So a mark at 3, which is right there. Okay, and these cross marks I may go ahead and use in pencil, because they're going to get covered up anyway. And it's really hard to see the cross marks again. That black line, the drawback is it's really hard to see. The benefit is it's really hard to see. Alright, so there's my 3 centimeter line and my 3.5 centimeter line. And then we need another line at 17.8 centimeters. I'm just going to put it right about there. Okay, now at my 3.5 centimeter line here, so this one here, we're going to cut a 3 millimeter or 1/8 of an inch slit. This will be for the launch lug, or excuse me, not the launch lug, but the engine clip. And that's going to go right over my other line here. So I'm going to extend that over a little bit so I can still see it later on. Okay, so now the engine hook is going to go into that slit that I just made. Like that. Okay, and then the fin unit is going to come over the forward end, slide down. This notch here goes over the engine clip, and then this is going to go down to that 3 centimeter mark. So the top of the engine clip is going to be visible there. So there's my mark right here. Okay, so when everything's in place, we're going to see a little bit of the body tube through there. Okay, a lot of overhang here. Alright, but otherwise that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to bring this back up. Okay, like about, come back a little more. Oh, there we go. Alright, and we're going to start with putting a bead of glue around the area just below the engine clip. So right about where I put that 3 centimeter mark. Here you can use either the tube type plastic cement or a gel type super glue. I found the super glue works better when we're gluing dissimilar surfaces. So here we're putting cardboard to plastic. I think we'll have a better adhesion with the super glue. Alright, now we're going to want to do this next part kind of in one fluid motion. So we're going to push the fin assembly through the glue and all the way back down to that mark, just like that. Okay. And now we'll let that dry. Okay. After the fin assembly has dried to it, we're going to come now up to the other end here and install the shock cord. So that mark we made up here toward the forward end, we're going to cut another notch in this. Okay, again, around 3 millimeters or 1/8 of an inch. It's going to need to be just a little bit wider than the shock cord itself. Okay, so we're going to take the shock cord now, and this, we'll see how this goes. I've seen some of these mounts before on Estes models, and I'm not always that satisfied with them. I'm going to go ahead and trim off this fuzzy part here on both ends. Okay, and the idea here is to feed this into that slot. And so you may have to widen it a little bit by just kind of moving this around in there. Okay, and then just start with one corner and feed it in there. Okay, and you see it right in there. So you can use a handle or a pencil to help bring that up. Slide some more in there. Okay. A pair of tweezers will also work to help pull that out. Okay. Now we need to pull this through, but not all the way. Alright, they have us leaving 6 millimeters or about 1/4 of an inch hanging here. Alright, and now we need the launch lug, and if you look carefully here, there's a little notch on the inside of the ring, and that's going to go over the tube there and over the shock cord. So I'm going to test fit this. So the idea is that the notch inside will go over the shock cord like that, and then this part, the launch lug, should line up with the launch lug that's integrated into the fin can. And it's close but not quite, so you may have to wiggle it a little bit. Alright, and mine's actually got a big piece of plastic flash on there. I'm going to cut that off. I'll remove that. And just trim off that little bit of plastic there. Okay, so now I'm going to put that back. Oops, got to make sure the tapered edge is facing forward. Okay, I'm going to bring this out back to its 6 millimeter or so position. Okay, and now, like we did with the fin can, we're going to put some glue around this. And they're using the tube type plastic cement again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use my super glue, my gel type once more. I'm kind of iffy about both of them because they both tend to degrade elastic. Alright, I'm going to use a thinner bead here. Okay, and I'll put a little bit right on there. Alright, and once more, I'm going to slide that over the shock cord. Okay, sight down the rocket. Make sure that's in line, and looks like we got it that time. Okay, and then let this dry, and then if you want to, after the glue is dry, you can carefully take your hobby knife and trim that away. At the other end of the shock cord, we're going to tie that onto the eyelet here. Tie a double knot in that. Okay, and bring that up and stretch it in lots of different directions here so we get that knot all the way down. And then, as a little safety precaution, I'm going to put just a little dot of glue on that knot so it doesn't come undone. And you can do this with the white glue or the wood glue. I don't recommend super glue or plastic cement for it. Okay, and just take your finger, work that glue into the knot, and then this free end here, trim that back to about 5 millimeters or about 1/4 inch, so it doesn't get stuck between the body tube and the shoulder there. And then our recovery system is this very small streamer. And part of the reason for the smallness of all of this, both the shock cord and the streamer, is that we've got to get it into this narrow body tube here. Alright, so the instructions show tying this on, so tying the streamer onto the shock cord. I don't like to do that because the knot takes up more space. So instead what I'm going to do is first of all square off one edge of the streamer here. Alright, and then I'm going to flatten out my shock cord, about like that. Alright, and then I'm going to take a piece of cellophane tape. Alright, and I'm going to put this first of all on the back side, and then bring it around front. Okay, and then I'm going to put the shock cord on here. I'm going to leave just a little room between it and the payload section. And I'm going to fold this over so that I catch both the shock cord and the other side of the streamer there. Okay, now we don't have any knots that might prevent proper deployment. Okay, and then when we're ready to, we just fold the streamer over itself lengthwise several times. This is a whole lot less time consuming than trying to roll it from the end. And then once you've got a manageable length here, then you can roll up the rest of it. Okay, so it's like that. If you're actually prepping this for launch, take a single square of recovery wadding, crumple it loosely and stuff that down inside. And then you can follow that by the shock cord itself and the streamer. Just kind of stuff those down inside there. Okay, and there should not be anything getting caught in between there. If it's really hard to push that down, it means you probably got a piece of the shock cord or the streamer stuck in there. Just reposition it. Okay, I'm going to put my nose cone back on the payload section. Alright, now I'm going to do a shake test here. So I'm just going to put this down. Alright, and just a little bit of shaking caused this to come loose, and we don't want that. That means it's too loose and might come come open in flight. So to fix that, we're going to use a little bit more masking tape. Okay. Now I'm going to start with about a half a circumference there. Don't think it needs the full circumference. And then if you want, you can trim this excess stuff away, or you can just fold it down. If you have narrow masking tape, that will do it as well. Okay. So now I'll put this back together. Okay. And now I can do my shake test, and that's not coming out. All right, but it should still come apart fairly easily, and that's what we want there. Now, depending on things like temperature and humidity, you might have to change that masking tape to different thicknesses depending on the conditions at your launch. Okay, so structurally this part's done, but we still need to put the decals on. Now, the decals can be applied according to the scheme shown here, but they don't have to be. You don't have to put decals on at all. This is flight ready as it is right now. But if you do want to put the decals on, you can either use their scheme or you can use your own. You know, this is your rocket. Be as creative as you want to. So first of all, make sure you wash your hands well before doing this, and this will keep the skin oils on your fingers to a minimum and also help prevent dirt and other stuff from transferring onto the decals. Okay, so some of these are just meant to go wherever you want to. The little bursts here are meant to go on the fins. This is a wrap that goes right below the transition here. Okay, and then the main X-ray here, this is a wrap, and I would recommend putting that opposite the launch lug there. That way you'll see it when it's on the pad. So I'm going to put a few of these on. I won't do the whole rocket for the video. Okay, but these tend to stick very readily, and so be careful as you put them on. Okay, so this is being shown about in the middle of the body tube. They're showing it in line with the engine clip. Like I said, I prefer to do mine opposite of the launch lug, so that's where I've got mine. And initially just try to touch this down very lightly and see if it's straight, and I can tell right away that was not. Okay, that's still not, so I'm going to bring it up again. If this attaches too firmly, it'll pull the finish off, so you have to be careful of that. That looks pretty close. So when you've got it where you think you want it, then go ahead and press it down in the middle, and then work your way from the middle outward and press out the air bubbles. Okay, so that came through fairly well. Okay, I'll also do the wrap up here. If I can get it off. There we go. Alright, so this is shown. I'm going in this direction here, and on wraps like this I like to start and end at the launch lug. That way if they don't quite meet correctly, you can hide it. You won't see it on the launch pad. Alright, and just keep some tension on this going around, and if you did it right, it'll all meet up. That came out really nicely. Alright, once more, squeeze the air bubbles out. Okay, and then the rest of these, they can go on the fins. The other X-ray burst here. I'm not sure where it's supposed to go. Probably on the opposite side of the X-ray. Okay. You could, if you want, even put decals on the payload bay. It just means it'll be harder to see what's inside of it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the X-ray burst here. Yeah, I guess... Oh, maybe I'll put it up here. So I'm going to put this in a horizontal direction. Trying to line it up with the main decal there. Okay. I've still got a little bit of my shock cord showing. I'm actually just going to leave it there. It'll probably do more damage trying to trim it out. Okay. And I'll do the rest of these decals off camera. So this only took maybe, a little more than half an hour to put together in my real time. So hopefully yours went together as easily as mine. Have a great flight and a safe recovery, and please stay tuned for more of my videos.